Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal this Thursday. I hope you've woken up and the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this, of course, around the world. Hope the mood has lifted a little bit. I don't think it has, to be honest, because I think we can all gauge the mood, certainly on social media since the defeat on Tuesday night. It hasn't got too much better, has it? There's been lots of I don't know is the word. Yeah, no, probably angry is the right word. It's definitely been a lot of anger on social media, a lot of anger directed at me, as always. Not by all of you, of course, but by some. And it sort of comes with the territory, I suppose. But you can really sense the frustration after Tuesday night. It's certainly been, and I can understand that. I'm as frustrated as anyone. It was a really hugely frustrating night. A game that Arsenal really should have got something wrong, but instead, through their own issues when it comes to finishing chances, they didn't get anything from and have left themselves, with a mountain to climb, shall we say, when it comes to potentially making it to Wembley. So today's show, we're going to talk about some of the transfer rumours doing around. We're going to talk about Nico Williams. He's back in the headline when it comes to potential move to Arsenal. We're going to talk about the fallout from Mikel Arteta's ball comments after Tuesday night's game. Got some comments and questions from you guys as well. Talk about Oleksandr Zinchenko being linked with Inter Milan. We'll look at the prospects of him potentially leaving this month as well. Just to flag up, myself and James Ben just sitting down a little bit later on to do our Inside Arsenal. It's time. First time I've done that for a fair while, actually, since before Christmas. So looking forward to that. Anything you want us to discuss in that show, get down into the comments with extra time and give us your question and comment. I think we're going to talk quite a bit about the January transfer window and sort of come up with our own ideas about what Arsenal potentially should do, or what they might do, what they could possibly, what the chances of them doing anything. We'll give a big sort of discussion about that and look at how things are standing at Arsenal as we head into, nearly mid-January. Well, not mid-January. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself, but you know what I mean. So yeah, get down to the comments if you want us to discuss anything on Inside Arsenal Extra Time. Right. For today's show, then, Nico Williams, a player we know I've spoken about at length since the summer, a player Arsenal would love to sign. We know that. We've known that for a long, long time. If there was a possibility of it happening last summer, they would have pushed to get it done. But Nico Williams was very, very loyal to Athletic Club and didn't want to go, and made that pretty clear to everyone who is interested. Because look, it's not just Arsenal. Lots of top clubs across Europe wanted to sign Nico Williams on the back of his performances in Spain and then with the Euros as well with Spain. And Arsenal, one of those. And that interest, remains. It's not gone anywhere. John Cross wrote a story yesterday in the Mirror talking about Nico Williams and Arsenal's interest in him, but also detailing why it was a difficult deal to do in the summer and why it is still a difficult deal to do now. Obviously, he has this release clause, which on the paper makes it look far easier, but those sort of release clauses in Spain, we know, have to be paid in full, which is not easy, especially with all the PSR that now goes on with football clubs and the sort of guidelines that they have to follow, and the new shareholder loan deal as well. Arsenal did it with Thomas Partey, and there was help from the owners in getting that deal done because that release clause had to be paid in full. The whole sort of shareholder loans situation we know is changing from the new rules that have been pushed through by the Premier League. So it's not an easy deal to do. His wages are obviously sky high as well. We know with Athletic Club, because of the sort of rules around who can play for them, to ensure that they keep their best players, they pay very, very well. And there's tax rules and things like that, which ensure those players are paid very, very well. And, he would be coming on big, big money when he makes a move to someone in Europe. He's going to be, on big, big wages. And those wages are pretty sort of public knowledge in terms of how much money someone's going to have to pay him to eventually make that move. So it's not an easy deal for Arsenal to do. And it does feel like one that, if it were to happen, the summer is much more realistic. That's what I've always felt in terms of the potential of Nico Williams coming to Arsenal, that a January move would be a very, very difficult one to do. I mean, who knows? As I've said in the last, I don't know, since January started to come around, that the situation Arsenal are in, especially with Bukayo Saka's injury, if there's anything that you had planned for the summer that you can potentially fast track to do in January, then you really should be looking to do that. Could Nico Williams fall into that category? We'll have to wait and see. Yes, it would be a very expensive deal to do, but again, needs must sometimes, and this is a situation Arsenal need to react to because they're not scoring enough goals in plenty of games. They're not creating enough chances. They clearly need some more when it comes to their attack. So if there is something you can fast track, even if it means overpaying a little bit, then surely that's something you should look into. And Nico Williams would certainly be an exciting prospect at Arsenal, no doubt about that. Now, he's not had the best of seasons at Athletic Club. A lot of people have pointed to that and point to his numbers. I think he scored 1 goal and 2 assists in the league so far this season. If you put that into the Arsenal team, it's not going to make much of a difference, is it? His numbers paling in significance to Gabriel Martinelli, for example, when it comes to goals and assists this season. But I do think you have to, when you look at Nico Williams' output this season, I think you kind of have to factor in other issues as well. Like a lot of players, he went all the way in the summer, tired, I imagine, fatigued after what happened in the summer, no preseason, all that sort of stuff. I also think the situation around his future must sort of play into his head a little bit as well, even though he is very, happy and loyal when it comes to the club he's at, with all the talk and all the, potentially going to Barcelona and all that talk about in the summer as well, and Arsenal and all the other clubs that are linked with him. It must throw your head off a little bit. And I do wonder if that might be sort of linked to a downturn in output in the final third this season as well. But we've all seen it with our own eyes, how good a player he is on the biggest of stages. We saw it last summer with how exciting he was at the Euros. He's clearly a talented player. And he will make a big, big difference at Arsenal. And I know a lot of people, all the focus is on striker. Do Arsenal need a striker? And look, they do need a striker. There is no doubt about it. They need a striker. But I still look at the situation they are in right now in January, and I still feel like a wide attacker. If you can't get the striker you want in January, but you could potentially in the summer, and it's going to be easier. I still feel like a wide attacker would be just as beneficial to this Arsenal team and would make just as big a difference as bringing in a top striker right now. They need something in attack in one of those areas, whether it be striker or a wide attacker. And I do feel that wide attacker is very key. They're not going to go out and be able to sign 2 top players in January. It's just not, I just don't see that happening. I say they're not going to. It's hard for me to rule out completely, but it's hard for me to see that happening. But if you could get one of the 2 this window, it would just be a massive boost. And I think the team needs it. I think the fans need it as well. And I think that has to come into, you kind of need a little bit of a lift. And Arsenal feels right now, even though they're doing well in the league, doing well in the Champions League, they're in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. Yes, they've had a bad defeat in the first leg, but they're still having a decent enough season. But it just feels like we all need a little bit of a lift. The squad needs a little bit of a lift. The players, everyone, and a big new signing in January that really gets people excited. It does feel like something that the club could really, really benefit from. So we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on Nico Williams in the comments below. Is this the sort of player that would excite you? Should Arsenal, if the Cronkies could somehow help with this, is it something they should do? Let me know your thoughts on it. If it's a choice between a striker or a winger this month, let me know your thoughts. Anything they want to sort of join in the conversation, get down into the comments and give me a shout. In terms of outgoings, there's been talk and rumours and stories in the last 24 hours or so linking Oleksandr Zinchenko with Inter Milan. I have to say, when I look at players who could potentially leave this January, you look at Zinchenko in his situation and you think that there is scope for that to potentially happen, especially if Arsenal could get some money in for Zinchenko. He's really fallen down the pecking order now at Arsenal. He's not getting many minutes at all. Arsenal have got so many options on that left-hand side. The sort of emergence of Miles Lewis-Skelly has pushed Zinchenko even further down the pecking order. And if there is an opportunity, if an offer does come in for Zinchenko this month, it really does feel like one that might solve a few problems for Arsenal. It brings in some money. It allows a big name player a sort of player on big wages to potentially go out. He'll go and get some minutes elsewhere, start playing again. I think he looks a little bit frustrated, which is not surprising given he arrived at the club as a very big name signing who was going to make a big, big difference. And now suddenly finds himself way down the pecking order with an 18-year-old ahead of him. It must be incredibly frustrating for him. So it just does feel, if an offer comes in for Zinchenko this month, as much as you don't want to weaken your squad majorly in January, I think that is one area where Arsenal could potentially do something and it not weaken them too much. A lot of it might revolve around Kieran Tierney and whether that's something that would happen this month or the summer as well. But it feels like if a good bid comes in for Zinchenko, that it wouldn't surprise me if that's something Arsenal would do. And Inter Milan certainly sounds like a good move for him, should that be the case. But again, let me know your thoughts on that when it comes to Oleksandr Zinchenko. Now, I wanted to talk about the ball. I didn't really go into it yesterday because I just thought it wasn't really worth talking about, to be fair. But it's become a big story, and it has obviously been all over social media. And I just think it's much ado about nothing, to be honest. And you watch the video. I mean, I was in the press conference. I didn't even pick up in the press conference the first bit when Mikel kind of mentioned it in a bit of a throwaway comment. And the fact he did mention it first of all, it absolutely was. Um, for journalists in the room, then it was absolutely something to ask a follow up about. That's understandable. It was Mikel who brought it up, and I don't think Mikel really should have probably got into it the way he did. But he wasn't using it in his excuse. It's been painted that he used it as an excuse, and he hasn't used it as an excuse at all. I mean, there's even been statements now from the EFL. If you see the EFL statement from a spokesman said, as is required throughout the professional game, the Puma ball used in this season's Carabao Cup and EFL competition since 2021-22 is tested in accordance with FIFA quality program for footballs and meets the FIFA quality pro standard. In addition to the Carabao Cup, the same ball has been successfully used in other major leagues, including Serie A and La Liga, and 3 divisions in EFL. All club ball plays with the same ball. We've received no further comments of this nature following any of the previous 88 fixtures which have taken place in this season Carabao Cup. So we've even got statements from the EFL about it. It's just much ado about nothing. There's no way, even if Mikel Arteta winds you up to the max, and I know he winds up a lot of people, including Arsenal fans. I see the comments. There is no way you can look at what he said and think that he's blaming the ball for Arsenal's comments. He's just not. He basically said, look, we need to do better. They'd identified that the ball flies a little bit different. Clearly, that was what he was saying, and that he had told the players about it, and they'd tried to sort of work with it. And all he was saying was the players obviously didn't follow that through a little bit, but he wasn't using it as a deflection tactic or a blaming Arsenal's exit. There's one reason why Arsenal didn't win that game, and it has nothing to do with the ball. And he knows that. It was to do with rank poor finishing and poor defending at the other end, gifting away 2 goals that they really should have done better when it comes to defending. But there's no blame on the ball. And it'd be interesting to see what he says, because I'm sure he'll probably get asked about it in a press conference tomorrow at London Colney ahead of Man United. It'll be interesting to see what he says about it then. Right, let's move on to some of your questions and comments, shall we? Asano says, some of you might think this question is a joke, but I'm being 100% serious here with this question, Charles. When are we going to have the Dubai trip? Feels like there's no break at all this season, and international breaks just make things worse. What's the difference between this season and the last one? Is the new UCL format more international matches, or did we already get out of competitions at this point last year? I'm not so sure, but the players clearly need their minds to clear their minds at the moment. It's just ironic that we're talking about this topic and we got another important match in a few days. I'm not making excuses, but this is just brutal. It is, but there is no winter break this year, if you want to call it that. What they've had in the Premier League in the last few years is that sort of 2-week period where 1 week some people play and the rest get a bit of a break and then a comeback, and then the ones who played will have a break, and the ones who had a break come back. So you have that 2-week period. There isn't that period in this season because of the Euros last summer. The Premier League started a week later because everyone chose to have the kind of extra week then to let the players who are involved in the tournament have a bit of extra breather before coming back. So the season started a week later, but that does mean that there's going to be no break. So there is no Dubai trip. Asano, basically, Arsenal do not have any time. Every single match day, every single week now till the next international break in March, Arsenal are playing. So there is no time for Dubai break. There is no clear your head trip, warm weather training camp. So Arsenal can't be doing that to recharge the batteries. They've just got to keep going, power through, find some form, find a way to actually score some goals in some of these tight games. But unfortunately, there is going to be no trip to Dubai. So the likes of Ben White, when he's back fit, and everyone else are not going to be able to go and recharge their batteries over in the sunshine, unfortunately. So that's the answer to your question there. Matt now has got in touch. Says, perhaps a controversial view, but I think the conclusions about the Newcastle game are wrong. The window is open and it's always an easy conclusion to reach. But we didn't lose last night, Tuesday night, because of our previous transfer business. We had a strong 11 on the field that dominated the game in terms of chance creation. We should have won by a couple of goals. Senior experienced players that have played a lot of games at this point have got to take ownership and shoulder the burden of finishing better. The right reaction is same players, better finishing, not new players needed. Not saying that we don't need to add to the squad more generally, and certainly we should be active if we can find the right players, but it's wrongly letting the players off the hook to link that to the Newcastle game. They're expected to finish better than that, regardless than what we do in the transfer market. Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I definitely think Arsenal need additions. I mean, that's not been a secret. I've said that from the summer, that they left themselves short in the summer. They took a gamble. It's not paid off. And now they are very, very short with the injuries that they've had as well when it comes to attack. But you are absolutely right. The players who are on the pitch were good enough to finish those chances against Newcastle. Jurriën Timber should have scored his header in the first half. Gabriel Martinelli should have scored. It was a tough chance for Martinelli. And I said this yesterday, and I still absolutely back what I said. It was a tough chance. He was running at full pelt. He'd run half the length of the pitch. He'd taken 2 perfect chances. But that is still a difficult one to score. More often than not, that won't go in. I don't know. I haven't looked at the XG probability of that chance, but I would suggest it's not massively high. He still should score. Obviously, you've got to take those chances, especially in big games. It's what makes the difference. But it wasn't the easiest of chances. Kai Havertz, on the other hand, was an absolute sitter. You can't be missing that. It was an inexcusable miss. And you can talk about new signings all you want, but the fact was that the players on that pitch let themselves down when it came to finishing against Newcastle. And I think you're right, Matt, to point that out. Absolutely. But I still think it's pretty obvious, as you say yourself, that more is needed in the squad to equip it better to be able to take some of these chances that are coming their way. And here says, Charles, why would you think Arteta and the ownership are not looking for attackers? Of course they are, but who is available? Who wants to come to Arsenal? Who is a good fit in the dressing room? What are the FFP ramifications? These people are professional. I'm pretty sure they're as devastated as the fans and looking for opportunities to improve and strengthen the squad. Either you trust the process or you don't. Either you believe in the team or you don't. True fans are called supporters for a reason. Let's move on to the next match. Look, I'm sure they are looking. And they'll understand. Look, they wanted players in the summer. They couldn't get them. We've talked about Nico Williams. We've talked about Benjamin Sesko. But they decided to keep their powder dry. The decision they've then taken is, okay, we're not going to go out and panic and just sign anyone, which I can understand. But there are players out there. I mean, you look at some of the business that's now being done elsewhere in the Premier League this month. Man City, for example, with it's Mamouche, isn't it, from Frankfurt? It looks like that's a deal that's going to happen. Very exciting player, can play across the front line. Not going to be massively expensive, 40, 50 million pounds. It doesn't seem like Arsenal being in the run-in for him. Maybe he's made it very clear that Manchester City is the only club he wants to sign for. So, but there is business being done this month already by clubs in the Premier League. So there are opportunities there. But I understand you're right. There's definitely things that boxes that need to be ticked before you go out. You can't just sign anyone. It isn't Football Manager, but I still think there is definitely opportunities there for Arsenal to do something this month to give themselves the best possible shot of going on and winning themselves some silverware this season. Aaron's got in touch talking about Tomas Rosicky. If you hadn't seen the story run by Ed and Nick in The Guardian on Tuesday, saying that Rosicky is a leading candidate for the role of sporting director. Obviously, Aaron's asking about that. He says, personally, I don't get all the negative views on why he shouldn't be Arsenal director. He has very similar thoughts to both Arteta and Wenger, running a self-sustainable club and building foundation from the inside, bit by bit, making culture and making a complete team. He also knows the team very well, and Wilshere, Mertesacker, or even Mikel didn't have experience before coming to Arsenal, and they did a great job. He might not be the massive Alaba or Campos type figure that everyone would want, but he does seem to be like the man who is ready-made for the Arsenal job. I wouldn't have any issue. I don't care who comes in as sporting director as long as they're good. And if Arsenal think that Tomas Rosicky is good, then fine, give him the job and let him get to work. Sporting directors are sporting directors. You come in, you can get so. I remember when Arsenal signed Sven Mislintat, there was so much excitement that Arsenal got Diamond Dye, this genius who was just, had done amazing things for Dortmund. And it went terribly wrong after about a year or so. He was gone, and he's not done that much since. He's had spells at Ajax. I think I'm not sure where he is now. And everyone gets so excited about sporting directors, and it is an important job. But so many times you go chasing these big names and it doesn't really work or anything like that. I just want those good for the job. And if Rosicky is good and he's doing a good job over in Prague at the moment, and if he's the guy that Arsenal think is ready to make that move and can come in and do a job, then just make the appointment and let's see how it goes. I'm not massively bothered by the name or the stature of the person. I just don't think that matters. As long as they can negotiate and get good deals, they've got good contacts, then just get them in and get them appointed, because it is a really important role and it does need to be filled at Arsenal, no doubt about that. So that's my views on it, to be honest. And you're right, and the fact that he is an Arsenal guy, he knows the club and he knows he's got relationships with people that he'd be coming in and working would definitely help. So yeah, I don't, you know, I wouldn't be bothered about it. If it is him, then fine, just get it done. That's my view on it. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching today. Thank you for listening as well. Like I said, Inside Arsenal Extra Time with James Benge will be coming out a little bit later on today. You want to get involved in that show, you still got time. We're going to record about sort of 2 p.m. UK time. So if you're watching or listening to this before then and you want to get involved in it, then come back to this video on YouTube, get into the comments section, give your comment, your opinion, your question, and we'll pull some of them together and get them included in the show. Until then, have a great day, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.